I think coming from Silicon Valley as a millennial and just as an observer in the political sphere, misinformation is the number one contributor to the greater polarization in our society. And in fact, the matter is that as a member of the California State Legislature, I also am subjected to the type of misinformation out there, whether it be on policies or concerns within our democratic society. So much information is present, not just at the local level, but also at the state level. And therefore, it's incumbent upon us to find mechanisms on greater accountability. That's why journalism is so critically important in talking about the ethical standards that exist and also critical thinking, which is why I have advocated for policies like civics education to help empower young people to think critically, especially in an environment where information oftentimes is through social media, but oftentimes the algorithms help feed a known loop. And so how do we make sure that we're getting out of our silos, understanding the differences of lived experiences, but the importance of the government's role in helping to protect the integrity of free speech, but also ethical standards, especially when it relates to our civic duty in society. During political campaigns and seasons, many attack ads. Sometimes the truth is difficult for the average citizen and voter to understand. Yes means no, no means yes on a proposition or on candidacy. What is truth? And so in mailers and the history of politics is that sometimes there's mudslinging. We in the state of California believe in transparency and accountability. So I have been in the legislature to require greater transparency. So we protect speech and the right to say what you want, but there should be disclosures. So in the state of California, we require such ads of political mail to be disclosed as who is paying for this ad. So the question then is, for this conversation to occur, is who's paying for this ad? So that's what I would ask you that question. It's paid for by neighbors. Well, then the key question is who is funding the ad and what are the interests of whoever is spending the resources in this ad? And I'll just answer this question because this is also an educational opportunity. Neighbors, when you then go to the Federal Elections Commission, which then requires disclosure of who funds these ads because of transparency, it'll show you that Michael Bloomberg, an out-of-state anti-union billionaire, has put in close to $2 million to fund this ad in advance of my opponent. So this is not an intrinsic issue. This is an advance of a political candidacy to attack the opponent in advancing their candidacies. So now that we know that this is funded specifically with a specific goal in mind to attack a particular candidate by Michael Bloomberg, then we have to know, okay, that paints the picture to say that this is non-biased. Having said that, then the question is, how do I answer to some of the accusations? Number one, this is clearly misleading, but they understand the purpose. The reference is that I've missed votes. Number one, that's inaccurate. The number is inaccurate, but number two, here's what actually happens in the state legislature. You can push yes on a green button, yes, to vote yes, or you push no, the red button, or you can abstain, which is you don't vote either way. That essentially counts as a no, because the bill would not receive the requisite votes. But the mechanism to which why we would say no is oftentimes, I may say, as a bill is presented and introduced from the inception, it goes through various policy committees. So if I introduced a bill on increasing the minimum wage, for example, in the state of California, it would go to a policy committee, labor and employment. It would go to potentially a fiscal committee, appropriations. Then it would go to the state legislative side of the assembly, and then it would go to the Senate and begin that process. So by the time the bill goes through multiple processes, it would have had maybe 8 or 9 different hearings. On something like a bill like minimum wage, I may say I'm not prepared to vote on an increase in the minimum wage because I'm concerned about the impact to small businesses. So if the bill changes by the time it gets to me on the legislative floor to maybe say that we should see a small business exemption, and oftentimes I've said that, I'm not prepared to vote for the bill at hand because of the impact on across the board. But I think big business, big corporations can withstand an increase in the minimum wage. But what about that small business owner of 25 employees or less? I think an increase in minimum wage may disproportionately hurt them, and they cannot absorb that. So could we put a small business exemption? If you put a small business exemption, I will vote for it. But the bill before me does not have that exemption. So that's where I may say I'm abstaining because I'm not ready to vote for the bill. But by the time the bill gets to me after these committees, I may vote yes, which in fact is the case. So that is the distinction that exists. Specifically also on the trips, we are by law required to disclose any type of international travel. So the travel that is also listed is I've gone on official delegation visits to Spain, talking on a trip fact-finding on high-speed rail. Spain has high-speed rail. It's 30-old-year technology. In the state of California, we are building high-speed rail. And in fact, unfortunately, high-speed rail does not exist in the continental United States. Every other industrialized country has high-speed rail. High-speed rail does not exist. So we in California are the first state to build that. And we went on a delegation in partnership with the country of Spain to look at best processes of what you have done. What are the problems? What are the barriers that existed? How do you overcome them? Because we are trying to engage on that now about the similar problems, cost overruns, delays, barriers to entry. All of these things are intertwined. I've also gone on an official delegation to Taiwan. We have to disclose these on who pays for these trips officially by Taiwan. Taiwan had the first female president. I hope we can get a first female president. Taiwan also has high-speed rail. Taiwan is known for its semiconductors. Taiwan was the first territory to have marriage equality in the state of California, in Asia. Taiwan was first to provide marriage equality. I'm author of Proposition 3 on marriage equality in our state constitution. So you see a lot of specific issues on policies. But again, when you look at the attack ad, it is an attack ad to give an illusion and to misrepresent. The fact of the matter is I've been named the most prolific lawmaker by the Sacramento Bee. If I missed and that was accurate, I would not be the most effective lawmaker in Sacramento, named the most prolific by the Sacramento Bee. The Democratic Party would not give me the sole endorsement for the effectiveness and efficiencies of my record. So I stand on my record, being proud of being able to do that, and I'm hopeful that many will also take a look at who's funding this and why is an out-of-state billionaire invested in buying this election for my opponent who does not even live in the district. I'm in support of making sure that there is liability, that these companies also have the sense of ownership and liability with respect to what happens on these platforms. Unfortunately, so much within the tech spheres, the genie is out of the bottle and government is slow to catch up with the regulatory framework. Oftentimes, by the time government comes up with a regulatory framework, the technology has already advanced. So it is imperative to have an individual in government, many individuals in government who have subject matter expertise on technology, especially from the next member of Silicon Valley, to understand the technology, but also the public good. What is in the best public interest, in addition to that of supporting the innovation economy? It is imperative that post-election, no matter what, the fact of the matter is that we will need much healing. Both respective sides, given that we are a two-party system, typically of Democrat and Republican, the other side will feel slighted, hurt. And these are fears and important to acknowledge. And so what is the role that we collectively play to help address the importance of a fair electoral process, while also understanding that there will be hurt feelings post-elections no matter what. And I think it's important then for us as active citizens and lending a hand in demonstrating the type of grace and empathy towards one another as fellow Americans, that while I, as a strong Democrat, am going to be very proud the day after election, knowing that Kamala Harris will be our next president, but also to not lose sight of those who perhaps voted for someone else. And how do we help build bridges and find commonality where possible?